Hi, Katiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Friday. Is June the 27th, and we're talking about some hurricane history that affected Louisiana directly well over 60 years ago. And we've also got a tropical wave that's been interacting with Central America. We've talked about it quite a bit this week with all of the heavy rains that have been going on down there. The National Hurricane Center now has its eye on that particular area, especially as we get into the weekend, and a couple of the models are looking kind of interesting too. So let's start out with our current temperatures here in the hub city. It is 90 degrees with partly cloudy skies, feels more like 98 thanks to those high dew points at 73, humidity 59%, light breeze out of the southeast, and our pressure holding at 30.09. And a quick look at some of our traffic cams. It does look like there's a bit of a backup there on the I-10 West, and it does appear that it extends all the way beyond Ambassador Caffrey, but can't really see the Scott exit nor out over toward Dusson. So not real sure if you're going to be heading westbound. You might want to hop on the 90 there for a while. As you can see, it's pretty backed up there through the I-10 at I-49 and even there at Ambassador Caffrey. It looks like by the time you get to Dusson, it looks a little bit better. But weather-wise, not seeing any rain on the roadways there locally. And as far as our hurricane history, this is the anniversary of Hurricane Audrey, which was back in 1957. So, again, we are looking at well over 60 years, almost 70 years since Hurricane Audrey made landfall there in Cameron Parish. We know hundreds were killed there, and the storm surge was absolutely incredible. There's a look. You can see the courthouse there off in the distance. So this is actually looking inland. So you can see how the waters of the Gulf really just pretty much wiped away everything there in the city of Cameron back in 57. And of course, in more recent times, we've seen that happen again with Hurricanes Rita and Hurricanes Laura with more recent memory there. So Cameron Parish has seen significant changes, not just in the last several years, but also over time, going all the way back to 1957. Some really interesting stories that I've heard over the years from some of the folks that actually rode out Hurricane Audrey down in Cameron Parish, and just heartbreaking stories when you hear those. Moving on, I do want to show you the radar, though. We've got some widely scattered showers and thunderstorms. Most of the action has been over the eastern part of Louisiana and kind of drifting its way off toward the west very slowly. Had a couple of little showers kind of pop up there along the I-10 and the I-49 over St. Martin and St. Landry parishes, but the rest of the region right now is relatively quiet. And as far as our rainfall elsewhere, we've got some showers and storms there along the Florida coast, but the rest of the Gulf Coast is relatively quiet. So across the U.S., we still have a big ridge of high pressure in the east, and we've got a bit of a dome of high pressure starting to build in the southwest as well. Gulf looks nice and clear, but you're probably noticing that blob of moisture there that's down here in the Caribbean, down here toward the south. So this is what we're going to be talking about quite a bit here over the next day or so, as we've got a tropical wave and a lot of heavy rain, and it is starting to show at least a few signs of development, and the models are also kind of buying in as well. But locally, if you're going to do some boating or if you're working on some of the rigs in the offshore waters, not a bad day out there. Winds are light out of the southeast and our seas are running about 1 to 2 feet. So this is the area that we're watching now. And you saw that blob that was there off the coast of the Yucatan, off the coast of Belize, north of Honduras. That's where most of the action is right now. But you can see out over the Bay of Campeche, there really isn't a whole lot happening. And this is the area we were going to be watching here as we get into Sunday and Monday, as a lot of the energy there from Central America starts to make its way off toward the west. You can see there's a lot of moisture, a lot of thunderstorm activity. There's a bit of a trough that's right about in here, and it's been slowly working its way off toward the west, but it's been very, very slow, and they've seen significant rains over Honduras and Nicaragua and much of Central America. And now this trough is starting to move inland, so that's why the models are kind of wishy-washy when it comes to development, because it is seeing the fact that there's a lot of land in the path between the Western Caribbean and then getting over into the Bay of Campeche. Also wanted to show you that real quick. Let me go back to this. I want to circle something here. So the small island of Cozumel, right in there. So I've got a camera that looks right out in that direction, and that's what I'm going to show you here. You can see folks are enjoying some of the waters there in Cozumel, but if you look out there toward the southeast, you can see those very dark skies. So it's not actually a gorgeous day. I mean, I would take it laying on a beach. Why not? But you got those darker skies that are farther out over the Caribbean, and that's part of the concern. The other part of the concern is the extremely warm waters that are right in this particular area. The water temperatures are anywhere between 86 and 90 degrees, and you've also got a lot of high heat content in that area. And if you're new to Let's Talk Tropics, heat content measures how deep those 80-degree waters go. So it's not just talking about the surface. So if a tropical system starts to work its magic out there, it can tap into some of that warm water that's deeper under the surface and still manage to strengthen. If the waters under the surface were a little bit cooler, it would churn that up. And then, of course, that would inhibit any of the storm's development. So because it's in a high heat content area, and it's also in the prime area where most of our tropical systems tend to develop during the month of June. That's why eyes are on that. But there are a few inhibiting factors. Right now, the wind shear is fairly moderate there over the western part of the Caribbean, and it's still fairly moderate over the Bay of Campeche. But let's take it out a couple of days. So this is looking ahead into this is early Monday morning, and you can see that the wind shear really does start to increase there over the Yucatan and much of the Bay of Campeche. So that could be an inhibiting factor. Let's go through the models right now, and we're going to start with the GFS, and I am going to stop the GFS on a certain area, but we want to watch this particular region, and then we also want to watch this particular region. So early on, you can see there is a little bit. I'm going to let this go ahead and reset real quick. But early on, you're going to see that moisture building and even a little bit of a low pressure area there over the Bay of Campeche. And then that moves inland. Then I want you to focus your attention over the southeast. And you see that trough starting to build as we get toward the 4th of July weekend. And there's a concentration of showers and thunderstorms and some lowering pressures there off the Florida coast. But immediately, the immediate concern is what could develop farther to the south. And there's just a little bit of a low pressure area that shows up here for Sunday afternoon. So it might have a brief window of opportunity to become a tropical depression there somewhere over the extreme southern part of the Bay of Campeche. Euro model is pretty similar as well. Not only are we seeing the moisture and the pressure somewhat dropping in that particular area there, but then in the farther out days here that we're seeing here across portions of the southeast, we've got a bit of a trough there. So again, you've got two areas that we're watching, one there and one right here over the next several days. The Euro, meanwhile, is showing a low pressure area here on Sunday, very similar to the GFS. Right there is that low pressure area, and that could be a tropical depression. So we'll have to wait and see what happens over the next couple of days. Canadian model, not quite as robust over the Bay of Campeche, although you still get a gathering of moisture. It seems to send more of its energy on the Pacific side. And the same thing with the icon. It is showing a little more energy on the Pacific side, but a gathering of moisture and some pressure drops there over the Bay of Campeche too. Both the Canadian as well as the icon are also starting to show some of this troughiness here over the southeast as we head into the 4th of July weekend. So at least for right now, what we're looking at there over the western part of the Caribbean, the GFS and the Euro model are forecasting a low-end tropical depression, while the Canadian, the icon, neither one of those are actually showing anything developing. Also wanted to show you, though, this is the mean tropical cyclone strike probability. And look, these are pretty low-end chances. Western part of the Bay of Campeche, you're looking at a 10 to 20% risk. But remember, this is starting on Monday and then taking us out to the following Monday. So that's why when you look there over the southeastern U.S., you do have the possibility. So again, we were talking over the course of the week with that trough there over the southeast for the 4th of July July weekend, who knows? Could we see something develop over the Gulf or perhaps the western part of the Atlantic Ocean? The Canadian model still has a closed low pulling away from the U.S. East Coast sometime right after the 4th of July weekend. So we might be getting some action here over the next couple of days. We'll have to wait and see. Real quick look at the Caribbean. We do have quite a bit of Saharan dust that's drifting off to the west, but there's still quite a bit of moisture flowing into Central America. Also wanted to point out another tropical wave that was looking kind of robust out here earlier, but it seems to be breaking up somewhat. It isn't showing any signs of any organization, but it is going to be working its way over toward the Windward Islands here over the course of the weekend. So that's going to be bringing some significant rainfall farther to the west. And then you got another decent tropical wave that's coming off the African coast this afternoon, and that could bring, we'll watch that as it moves off toward the west. Models really aren't too robust on that, but when we look at that global tropics hazard outlook or that strike probability outlook that we had just prior, that's why I'm a little more concerned about that particular tropical wave too. Do want to also look out at the Pacific, where things have been a lot more active. I think we're going to get another name system there over the Pacific, and there's a high-end chance, according to the National Hurricane Center, that we could see either a depression or I believe the next name on the list on the Pacific side is Flossie. So who knows? We might have Flossie out there. And if some crazy stuff happens over the weekend, we might have Barry in the Bay of Campeche. So unfortunately, Mexico is going to be dealing with quite a bit of tropical weather or a lot of tropical moisture here over the course of the weekend. Not a lot that's going to be heading in our direction, but remember, when we talked about Hurricane Audrey and the anniversary of that and what a devastating Category 4 hurricane that was, that did develop in the Bay of Campeche and lift northward, and it didn't give a lot of folks much time to get ready. So that's why we try to tell you to be ready for hurricane season before hurricane season starts. Now, I know we've got almost a full month under our belt, and there's a lot of you probably who are not ready for any tropical weather. But if you want to grab some of the things that you see here on the list, take the time over the weekend, maybe even just grab one line on this list and try to get those things together. That'll get you a little bit ahead of everybody else. And if any other tropical weather decides to start heading our way, at least you'll have some of the basics available to you, and you won't have to run out to the store and fight everybody else looking for the exact same item. So do keep that in mind over the weekend. If you can take one of these lines, or if you can take care of the entire list over the course of the weekend, you're going to be pretty good. I also have other lists that I'll use when we have hurricanes or tropical storms affecting us. I've got another list that's used for a week out, like when a system might be threatening us a week out. And then I've also got another list of things that you can do 3 days out, because usually by 3 days, we know if we're going to be impacted by a tropical system or not. Well, that's what I've got for you on this Friday. I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me on a Friday afternoon. Hopefully we don't have to worry much about anything over the weekend. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications. You can also hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And for any updates on the tropics over the weekend, please follow my social media pages both on Facebook and X. And if anything crazy happens, we might do a special edition of Let's Talk Tropics over the weekend. Of course, that will be right here on Acadiana Weather Today. Hope you all have a great weekend. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. I'll see you on Monday.